London Uncovered, as we are moving on to a very special episode. And today, in the context of Global Forgiveness Day, we are talking about from bitterness to bliss. And yes, Alexander Pope eloquently proclaimed that to err is human and to forgive divine. This profound statement encapsulates the human experience, acknowledging our inherent fallibility and the challenging nature of forgiveness. And as we recite the Lord's Prayer, forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us, we are reminded of the significance of forgiveness that holds in our lives. But what does forgiveness truly mean? It is a conscious and deliberate decision, a choice to release the shackles of resentment and vengeance that bind us to those who have harmed us. It is an act of empathy, regardless of whether the recipient of our forgiveness deserves it. Forgiveness does not signify weakness, rather, it showcases our inner strength. It requires us to confront our deepest wounds and choose compassion over retaliation. Forgiveness manifests in different forms: unconditional, conditional, dismissive, and self-forgiveness. Unconditional forgiveness liberates us from attaching conditions to rebuilding broken relationships. Conditional forgiveness necessitates ongoing efforts from the offender and constant vigilance from the forgiver. Dismissive forgiveness adopts a whatever attitude, choosing to move forward without dwelling on the hurt. Self-forgiveness involves expressing remorse, making amends, taking responsibility, and accepting the consequences of our own actions. So what are the benefits of forgiveness? Forgiveness offers emotional healing, relieving us from a burdensome weight of resentment. It reduces stress and improves our mental well-being. It strengthens relationships, allowing love and trust to flourish. Moreover, forgiveness positively impacts our physical and mental health, freeing us from the chains of negativity and opening the path to healing. It grants us the power to release the past, to let go of lingering pain, and to embrace a brighter future. So what are the steps to forgiveness? There are 3 crucial steps to this path. Step 1, just forgive. Forgiveness is an intentional choice. When we forgive, it liberates us from the burdens that restrain our hearts. Step 2, forgiving. This step involves a process, a continuous journey. Here we cultivate a genuine desire for good things to come to those who have hurt us. Step 3, forgiving. Here we find ourselves rejoicing in the success of those who have hurt us. And then we know that true forgiveness has been attained. So let us embrace the power of forgiveness. We become agents of change and architects of empathy. Tell us, what does forgiveness mean to you?
Forgiveness is not a feeling, it's a stance. It's something you do, it's something you decide to do. It's not necessarily based on how great you feel or how loving you feel. It's a decision and a stance in your life to treat somebody a particular way.
So how can one forgive others?
It's really hard. It's really, really hard. I would also say that forgiveness is not the same as letting somebody walk over you. So if you're being abused, if somebody's a danger to you, do not think that God says you must forgive them and therefore let them do it all over again. Forgiveness means that when you are in a safe place, when you know that you're secure, that you let go and decide not to take what that person has taken from you back. So literally it's got the word give in it. They owe you something, but when you forgive them, they don't owe you it anymore. And that's what I mean, is it's a stance. You can leave it, you decide not to prosecute what's going on, and you walk away. But it does not mean that you let them walk all over you again and you let it happen again. It's a process of leaving something behind.
What message would you give to the world, Peter?
Real forgiveness is shown us by God himself. It's as simple as that. If you want to know what forgiveness looks like, it comes from God himself, who forgives all of us. And because of that forgiveness, then our forgiveness of others is possible. But that forgiveness costs God, and the forgiveness will cost you as well. But if you don't forgive, you will end up poisoned. That's the trouble. You have to forgive to walk away free. And that's what God did.
Peter, as always, that was profound. Thank you.
Thanks.
Tell us, what does forgiveness mean to you?
Forgiveness, oh my goodness, that's a huge topic. I think forgiveness is at the core of love, but I think forgiveness especially is absolutely essential for relationships, for committed relationships, for friendships, for there to be keeping very short account on stuff, being able to very quickly say, look, I'm sorry, I did that wrong, please forgive me, and the other person to say, of course I forgive you, and to move on. But I think forgiveness in a more general sense, it's not, here's the thing, I don't think it's a feeling, it's a choice, it's a decision. And then after you've actually made that decision is when the feeling comes. The wonderful woman who was in Ravensbrück concentration camp, the writer and speaker Corrie ten Boom, late Corrie ten Boom, and she lost her sister in the concentration camp. And she speaks of how later on in life she met one of the guards. She was speaking at a conference about forgiveness, and one of these ex-Nazi guards comes up to her and says, forgiveness is such a wonderful thing, please forgive me. And she just stood there frozen to the spot, because she was like, well, I can't possibly forgive this man. You know, he took my sister away and she knew in that moment she had a choice. And she says she prayed for grace. She prayed to God for strength in that moment to extend her hand towards him so that she could actually say, I forgive you. And she did it as an act of the will. And it was only then that she felt the love of God. She felt the electricity of grace pouring through her to be able to actually do it. Does that make sense? I think, you know, this idea of make the choice and then the feelings come.
So what message would you give to the world, Jamie?
Prioritize short accounts, forgiveness in your personal relationships, being honest when you've got stuff wrong, say sorry, be quick to say sorry, but also be quick to forgive other people when they do ask you for forgiveness. But also this, if someone never asks you for forgiveness for something, if you've got you're holding something against someone, friend, family, whatever, pray to God to be, you know, to say, I choose to forgive them, and I pray that you would help me work that out in my daily life.
Jamie, it's been a pleasure. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Tell us, what does forgiveness mean to you?
Well, I think I have to start by saying it's probably one of the most misunderstood ideas, certainly within Christianity. What it isn't let's pretend somebody didn't do something wrong, or let's pretend there's no such thing as justice because God is a God of justice. I think as a starter, I mean, you could talk about this for ages and ages, but as a starter, I would say it's letting go of any presumed right of revenge. For me, that's I feel like a good starting point.
So how can one forgive another?
Firstly, it's not about feelings, it's an act of will. And it's, if you wait for your feelings to get in line to help you to forgive, with some of the things that have been done against you, you'll be waiting a long time. So I think you start by getting, firstly for me, it's getting my tongue in line with my will and speaking forgiveness and speaking a blessing, even over things that are evil. It doesn't mean that that person doesn't have to give account for their behaviour to God. It certainly doesn't mean that God has forgiven them, but this is about how you stand before God. and getting your heart right before God. And that means even blessing and forgiving evil things that have been done to you.
Simon, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Tell us, what does forgiveness mean to you?
Forgiveness means truly letting go in your heart the anger and resentment you have towards another person for harming you or harming someone else.
So how can one forgive another?
Well, first, it starts with a choice to choose to forgive. And then, if there's still resistance in your heart, to pray for that person and to pray for the completion of forgiveness. And finally, it often works as a spiral where you have to make it again and again in order for the forgiveness to be complete.
What message would you give to the world, Ben?
Well, unforgiveness is toxic. It's biologically harmful. It can make people sick, arthritis, all kinds of things. Forgiveness is much the better way. Forgiveness is God's way, and we should do that.
Ben, as always, a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sanjay.